Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use our MIDI Messenger, which is an audio unit version 3 plugin that works on iOS, iPadOS and macOS. The first thing you should know about it is that this plugin is actually two plugins, MIDI Processor and Instrument. The MIDI Processor version was created first and we naively thought that'd be enough, but it appears that not all audio unit host programs support MIDI effect plugins, so we created an audio unit instrument version as well, so users of such host programs would be able to use it too. So let me show you how to add a MIDI Messenger to your project as a MIDI effect plugin first. We'll use AUM. Here we can create a MIDI track and tap plus and go to audio unit MIDI processor, scroll down and here's MIDI Messenger. AUM is kind of a modular environment, so after adding MIDI Messenger you need to connect it to some MIDI output or a virtual instrument that you want to control. You can do this after tapping this snake-like button and then looking at this grid, find the source and then destination. So let's say we want to send everything from MIDI Messenger to this WIDI Bluetooth module, which is lying here. We tap this square here and everything from MIDI Messenger will go to WIDI Synth Bluetooth module. We can close it and that's it. Now let's add it as an audio unit instrument, just in case you can't load MIDI effects plugins. So we tap plus, audio unit and extension, scroll down, here's our instrument version of MIDI Messenger. It will also appear in this matrix, so you can also send everything from it to WIDI module. So let's see how it would work in GarageBand, which doesn't support MIDI effects plugins. Create a new song, select external track, tap it, and here's our MIDI Messenger instrument plugin. We tap it, and the track is created, MIDI Messenger is loaded, and we can create some messages here. Now let's check how it works on macOS. We'll use Logic for this. Here, choose any virtual instrument track, then click this MIDI effects menu, go to audio units and run instruments and MIDI Messenger. Now you have the instance of MIDI Messenger here as a MIDI effects processor. And if you want to send it to some hardware device, for example, the MIDI output of your sound card, in this instrument menu, you can select the built-in external instrument plugin and then select MIDI destination as some USB port, for example, USB MIDI device port 1. Now everything that is generated by MIDI Messenger will be sent to this MIDI port 1 of my sound card. For other audio workstations on macOS, please follow the related documentation. Usually it's quite basic stuff like selecting a MIDI output device in the channel strip parameters or adding an external or hardware instrument plugins like we did in Logic. Now let's send some messages. The task that led to creation of MIDI Messenger was sending program changes to hardware instruments from iPad after loading a project in AUM. So let's see how to do this. Suppose this is our project and we have some channels here and we have one MIDI channel for MIDI Messenger. And suppose I want to control these two devices, ZOIA and Particle, from iPad. So when the project is loaded on iPad in AUM, some programs will be loaded on ZOIA and Particle. What happens here is that I have this WIDI module. Whatever it receives, it sends to this MIDI splitter that duplicates the data and sends it to all 8 outputs that it has. And one of these outputs goes to ZOIA and one goes to Particle. So they receive the same data that comes to this WIDI module. We have MIDI Messenger here. Let's connect it to our WIDI device. Here in MIDI Messenger, we click this select drop-down and program change. Let's create another one for Particle. So we have 2 program change messages. One will go to ZOIA, one to Particle. ZOIA is set up to receive messages on channel 5, so we choose channel 5 here of 16.MIDI version 1 support. Particle is set up to receive messages on channel 7, so we'll select it. So let's say we want to load program number 5 on ZOIA and program number 3 on Particle, which will be this LAD 3 on Particle. They both have just one bank, so they ignored bank information. And as you can see on this second line of each message, we have this trigger option, which is on load now. It means that whenever this instance of MIDI Messenger will be loaded in this project in AUM, these messages will be sent to the output of MIDI Messenger, and our output of MIDI Messenger is connected to this WIDI device. So they go here and then they go to both of the devices. Now let's save this project. Let's name it PC test, program change test. Save this session and simply reload this project again. Now you see the program number 5, which is number 4 because it's zero based, and program number 3, which is program number 3 because it starts from one particle. Let's now check some other triggers. And let's say I want to load some programs when I hit these pads here on this keyboard. Pads send MIDI notes, so we will need note on trigger for both of our rules. They send MIDI notes on the channel 1, so we choose channel 1. This note will be E1, this note will be F1, so we choose E1, which is 40, and we will choose program number 1 here. Here again E1 for particle, program number 1. Then we will duplicate this message and this message, and here we will choose F1, which will be 41, and same here, 41. Changing program number 2. Let me tell you what happens here with this keyboard. It is connected to my computer, which is connected to the sound card. The sound card sends MIDI data through this wire to the input of this WIDI device, which is actually 2 devices, one for input, this wire, and one for output, this wire. We already are using the second part of this device for output, and we have connected our MIDI messenger to the output of this device. And now we will use the first part of this device, which is input, that receives MIDI data via this wire. And we can see it here. So we will connect this to MIDI messenger. So whatever comes in through this wire will go to our MIDI messenger. Then MIDI messenger will use the triggers. And whenever it sees the note E1 on channel 1, it will send this program change to its output, which is connected to the output of this device, which will go here and then to ZOIA and particle. So now I just press this pad, and you see the program number 0 was loaded here. It's program number 1 because it's zero based. Program number 1 was loaded here, as you can see. Now program number 2, which is 1 here because it's again zero based. The same way you can use any other type of message. For example, some buttons like these ones and these controllers use control change messages. When you select a CC message or CC trigger, you can see that it has the CC number, the value, and the trigger has again channel, CC number, and value. So you can use these values as well to set up other devices or control them in some other ways. Later, we plan to add expressions to messages, so you'll be able to use the trigger channel number or value in the message that you send, with the possibility to alter it in some mathematical way. And now a couple of words about general things. First, delay. This value determines how much time in milliseconds should pass since the trigger event was detected. You can enter it manually using numbers. You can just choose some presets from this menu, for example 1000, which is 1 second. This pass-through selector on the trigger line has 3 options. When the pass-through is selected, the incoming message called by this trigger will be sent to the next rule in the list. Finally, to the output of MIDI Messenger. Consume matching means that the event that matches this trigger filter will not be sent further after triggering this message. And consume non-matching won't let any incoming messages go through this message unless they match the trigger filter. And here I need to say that messages have order and you can reorder them by dragging them. We created these drag handlers here on the left, so it'd be easier to drag them. From what I told you by now, I guess you'll be able to understand how the rest of message types and triggers work, so let's just quickly run through all of them. Note on and off messages are now separate, but we'll add a combined one later where you'll be able to set up the duration of the note. For now, you can create a note off message with a delay. For both of them, you can set up the MIDI channel, the note number, velocity, and the delay, of course. Pitch wheel, which is here, now accepts only absolute MIDI protocol numbers with 8192 being 0 semitones, so it's neutral position, 0 being the lowest position, and 16,384 being the highest position. System exclusive is currently suitable only for short messages, while you can, of course, enter as many bytes as you wish in there. Later we'll do something about it, so you'll be able to use it reliably with any amount of system exclusive data, but now it will work fine with something like this. All sound off and all notes off are basically shortcuts for CC messages placed here for your convenience. Here I need to say that the actual effect of CC message depends on the instrument or device that receives this message. The standard convention about functions of CC numbers is not always followed by developers. I assume the triggers are quite self-explanatory. The only thing to mention here is that in order for transport triggers to work, MIDI clock has to be sent to MIDI Messenger. For example, AM doesn't send MIDI clock to plugins and MIDI outputs by default, so you need to set it up manually. You go here to the BPM settings, then you click MIDI clock send, enable send MIDI clock. You don't need song position number in MIDI Messenger, so you can switch it off. And then here in the list of outputs and plugins, you can click MIDI Messenger, telling AUM to send MIDI clock to MIDI Messenger. And now transport start, transport stop, and continue triggers will work because MIDI Messenger will receive MIDI clock. It may differ in various health tabs, but usually MIDI clock is sent to all plugins by default. What's left is to show you this basic built-in MIDI monitor. At the bottom you can unfold it and see more events. On the left will be the incoming messages, on the right all that goes to the output of MIDI Messenger. And basically that's it for this video. Please support us on Patreon. We'd be really happy to bring more tools and instruments to life, both virtual and hardware. If you have questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to leave comments here on Patreon, Facebook, or just email us. We love emails. And for now, I wish you a wonderful day and see you soon with new updates.